Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of The Amazing Spider-Man issue 6/900. And it's kind of cool that we've gotten to the 900th issue of The Amazing Spider-Man. And I think this did a really good job of celebrating Spider-Man throughout most of his history with this, but still just keeping it in a centralized kind of story as we go throughout, and then get some kind of ones at the end that just kind of do some cool Spidey stuff. So, let's see. Now, granted, this is more expensive because it's the 900th issue. It's $9.99, but I think that value-wise, we got really good artwork, we got really good story going through it, and then we got some of the backup kind of like stories that we got that just worked out pretty well. Let's see here. And we also got kind of like an interview kind of thing where the kind of letters would be. And that worked out pretty well. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So we pretty much start off and we see that this guy is like looking for something in this kind of place. And this dude's like, why are you spending $15 million on this? It's like, I found it. And it's just like, the Living Brain Project? I shut that down. I was like, no, I am the project. Going back to where it all kind of started, it's like, huh, that's definitely interesting. And it kind of helped me because I'm like, who the hell is this dude? And it's like a living brain kind of thing. It's like, all right, that's kind of good to know and helpful. So after we get that out of the way, we see that, like, it's pretty much Peter's birthday, and everybody's kind of pissed off because he actually arrived on time for this birthday party, and they were like, no, Jonah's not here yet. And he ruined it. He's like, sorry everybody. And we see flashes here. We see Bobby, like Mockingbird's here. It's like, oh, okay. I think it's Mockingbird, because it's spelled the same kind of way, Bobby-wise. And they're pretty much waiting for Jonah to, like, get there, and it's, like, taking a while. Flash is being his own kind of way. Like, bringing up is like, oh, you still working for J. Jonah Jameson? And then I heard you didn't have any job. It's like, ah, damn it, Flash. And then Bobby's like, from the way most other heroes were talking, she'd think this would be some other kind of intervention. And man, everything. And then it's really kind of weird that Felicia's kind of getting jealous about Bobby, and I'm like, I haven't even seen Peter interacting with Bobby that much at all. So I was like, okay, that's a little bit out of nowhere. But then, of course, we hear somebody shout Parker, and then we see Doc Ock's arms. It's like, ah, shit. But Peter's like, that sounds like... Then we get this great splash page that J. Jonah Jameson has the octopus arms, and it's like, what the fuck? It just got a lot of cool detail. I like the lettering of the shouting and everything, and it just shows Jonah just fucking looking like, what the fuck's going on here? And Peter's like, what the fuck? What are you doing with the arms? Does it look like I know you, little twerp? But then, of course, he kind of has a little powwow with him to kind of keep his shit on there. And someone's yelling, I'm coming, Peter! And then we see that Felicia's pretty much going in to kind of help out. And then, of course, we get pretty much stuff going on between Felicia and Bobby. And it's like, oh, okay. Now, I don't mind this, but since I've been reading the newest run's arc, it just, I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? Now, granted, there are like a million Spider-Man titles, so it could be in there somewhere that I just haven't read. I was just like, oh, okay. And Felicia's talking about, like, she's kind of Peter's bodyguard. And Pete's like, oh, God. But then, of course, Jonah kind of gets out of there because the arms are doing their own kind of thing. So Pete runs after him. Of course, we see a truck that's got Zeb there. That's kind of cool. Little thing to the writer. As the arms pretty much stop a truck from running him over. And then I really like that it's kind of like this. Seeing how the truck's really kind of weird. And then you see it kind of go in this kind of upside down kind of way. So you have to kind of turn it to see kind of what's going on in that one kind of panel. So I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool. I like seeing kind of weird shit like that in comics. Where you're like, ooh, what's going on here? And then we see that Spidey, you're like, I hope this looks as hard as it feels. As we see a really good shot of Spidey just looking fucking cool, having webbed up the truck and everything. And I love it. Jonah's like, I'm saved! And then, of course, the arms then drop his ass and then go after Peter. It's like, oh god! And then they clamp onto his ass. And he's like, oh god! And then he's like, help! And it says, like, the arms actually spell out help on the wall. It's like, huh, okay. And then Jonah tries his best to kind of like cover for him, saying that he got sick. Like, the party's canceled. He had an emergency with his health. It was gas, painful gas. He's trying everything, and I'm like, listen, coming up with a lie on the spot like that after you've pretty much been in like a very adrenaline-inducing situation where you got pretty much jacked by Doc Ock's arms isn't the easiest. So I kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. Felicia pretty much says, smooth there, Jonah. And then Peter actually starts talking to the octopus arm, saying like, okay, I know you kind of are connected to Doc Octor's nervous system. Is there something wrong with him? And then essentially a Lassie kind of situation. He's like, no, I'm not going to hurt you. And that the arms actually kind of like him. So he then starts following him. And he's like, yeah, that's it, girl, let's go. So we got a Lassie kind of situation. So Doc Ock is then hanging upside down. We've got more of an idea of what this living brain dude's kind of been doing with him. And that he knew that Jonah was the key. And then he's like, why would you call for Spider-Man? He's your enemy. Why would you look to him? And he's like, you might not know him, you buffoon, but I do. Certain that he will not like what you're doing here. And we see that this living brain dude is really analytical, very kind of computer-like. He's like, do you think I was unaware of your appendage's escape? And to find Spider-Man, they sought out who knew him intimately, and he wants to answer the question, who is Spider-Man? And then he's like, what are you planning to do? Know what he's already done. So the people in the party are trying to leave and everything. And the thing is, he's like, he knows Flash Thompson because his predecessor knew him. And he pretty much was able to disable his symbiote with a required frequency and has pretty much captured Flash, Robertson, May, I don't know if it's a woman or a girl or whatnot, and Felicia, and pretty much takes him away in a falling saucer. It's like, shit, that's going to be problematic. And the octopus arms lead Spidey to ICM, and she brings in, and we see the like living brain thing, the readout of all that, and we see then like this super adaptoid that's got pretty much the whole Sinister Six stuff going on, and that's a really nice page right there. It's really cool to showcase all the different kind of stuff that you see. You see Kraven, Doc Ock, Electro, Mysterio, all that kind of stuff. Then you start seeing Sandman's kind of stuff going on. It's really kind of cool. Vulture, of course, calls out Kraven, Vulture, Mysterio, Sandman, Electro, Doc Ock. And then starts pretty much attacking Spider-Man, and it's not going well for Spidey. When you get, like, set upon by a super adaptoid with all that stuff, and they're actually working in concert, it's like, oh, shit. And, of course, Spidey's like, he doesn't love this, and we bring up, like, Tales of Suspense 82, Spidey remembering the super adaptoid. And then, of course, Doc Ock's arms start kind of, like, helping him out as well, but it doesn't seem to be enough at this point. And, of course, first he thinks that there's two, but that was an illusion that was going on. Let's see here. So then we see everybody that was captured in the living brain pretty much, like, talking to them. trying to figure out who Spider-Man is. And they're thinking, like, he just keeps asking the question and everything. And May's like, you're going to meet him very soon. And then we see that Peter's pretty much tossed in, pretty much knocked out. It's like, what the hell? And then, of course, he gets into his spiel of who he is and how he was created by Randall Stephen Petty. And he was making machines because his father made thinking machines, and then was pretty much just giving inputs and data stuff to the brain so it would kind of learn and everything. And then at a certain point, he also got really big and then made his own kind of body and made the dude into an input for him as well. Let me see. He didn't survive it, but then he like took his place to kind of learn and everything, understanding the impulse of legacy, and the one they originally called the living brain, and kind of bringing it from there. And then he, of course, found the living brain and kind of jacked into it to kind of learn what was going on with it. And his first question was, what is Spider-Man's real identity? Who is Spider-Man? And then feeling all the different kind of feelings, the desperation, the fear, the first question, the incantation that brought the demon, who is Spider-Man, as we see Spider-Man fighting the original one. Let me see. So he sought out Doc Ock, learned that others had faced him, beaten him. He found the Adaptoid and infused them with everything. Pretty much just explaining everything that was kind of going on. And they're like, they at first think that he's trying to figure out Spidey's identity. But he's like, no, I want to know. He doesn't want the meat or the guttural vocalizations. He wants to know. He collates the data of the universe into a language that you could call God. And he wants more than just that, which is an interesting premise of, yeah, sometimes that's an important aspect of a character, their name, who they are physically, but sometimes there's more to that, and that is an important aspect that's more than just that to Spider-Man. And we see that Spidey's kind of twitching and everything, and he's pretty much going to Flash to pretty much turn him into an input, but then we see that May and Robbie are able to pretty much, like, distract the dude enough by, like, saying almost, not nonsense, but kind of just kind of freak him out. But then, of course, Spidey wakes up and he just fucking screams and is like, ah, shit! And then sets the Super Adaptoid to kill him, to step on him. Shit. And then I love the joke. This guy's big endgame can't be step on him, can it? And of course, Felicia and Flash's abilities are being kind of like negated. So they're like, what do we do? Get the civilians to safety. And he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to like outrun this motherfucker. And he keeps kind of like pushing him further and further in. And that's when he kind of like comes to the thing where he sees Doc Ock. Doc Ock gets the information of the Super Adaptoid and everything. It's like, ah, shit. And then he sees that everybody else is pretty much captured as well. And I'm not loving the vibe in here, guys. Gonna take my chances back out there. And then Doc Ock's pretty much just like being like, listen, we only have a chance of going against this by standing together. And they're like, alright, we'll put our hatred aside. Because they're pretty much being like, let's fucking take Spidey down. And Spidey's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. So we see that, like, the octopus arms are getting thrown around a little bit. But then we see Spidey arrayed with the Sinister Six, ready to fight the Super Adaptoid, which is actually another pretty cool page. I mean, that's just fucking awesome right there. And then we get another one as they're all pretty much trying to coordinate and go after the Super Adaptoid. But we see that they aren't. They do some interesting stuff. Electro kind of helps Sandman make a giant kind of hammer thing with electrifying the sand. And then Spidey's like, look, looks like everybody's teaming up. Should me and you? Not interested. Oh, didn't want to anyway, Doc Ock. Of course, Ock tries to take over and do everything himself, but then that starts fighting with the rest of them, which actually works out in his favor, because then the Super Adaptoid starts attacking pretty much himself and fighting with himself, which was an interesting kind of way to go for it. And everybody's like, just let it do its thing, and it pretty much rips itself apart. Because usually the Sinister Six does not historically work well together, at least in the long term. Doc Ock's like, yeah, that was my thing. I did that. And then, like, guys, we got the ultra living brain big boy over here. And it's funny because Sandman's like, it's beautiful. Elektra's like, we're frying it, right? And Spidey's like, no, let's not kill it. And he's like, I know this caused a lot of trouble. It almost killed me too. But this all started because I met a scared and confused robot a long time ago, the original living brain, and didn't have the perspective to show it kindness. What happens if we're unkind now? Maybe it comes back and bites us harder next time. And I do like that the Sinister Six guys are like looking at each other like, okay, he's kind of making some sense. And he's like, is that too much, Jax? That's that. We're killing him too, right? Clearly. It's like, Spidey does a really good job of like trying to like convince them, but they're like, fuck that noise. And then they pretty much go off against him, and Sandman's like, I don't even know whose side I'm on. And they pretty much almost take his ass out. And Ock is pretty much trying to go get the killing blow. But the arms like Spidey, and they're like, no, we're not killing him. And then, of course, Elektra is trying to go for it, but then Kraven's trying to do it. And then Kraven's like, you know what? I will give you one way to survive. You destroy the brain yourself, and I'll see to it that you live. Well, I guess I have no choice. If it's me or the brain, come and get me. As he stands up, ready to defend the brain with his life. And it's like, that's cool. That's Spider-Man. And that's a really good shot there. You see him beaten up and everything, but he still stands up to help protect this dude, even though he's done some crazy ass shit. It's like, alright. And of course the living brain pops up. Can this be Spider-Man? He collected Spider-Man's greatest enemies so I could destroy him. He abducted those he loved so I could know him, all in the service of the question, who is Spider-Man? And yet he stands here ready to give his life to protect me, because I was defenseless. So my question is answered. This is Spider-Man. And then, of course, he pretty much boxes up the Sinister Six and puts them away. And Ock is like, I'm going to destroy you, you asshole! He's like, where are you taking them? Back where I found them. Oh, would have preferred jail, but that's okay. He took them to answer the first question of who Spider-Man was, and in the end, they taught me. My power source. What is it? I'm sorry the things you did. I have to shut you down. Find you a place where you will be safe along with everything else. I want you to know I won't let anyone hurt you. I know. Maybe I've always known. And then he appreciates that. Oh, and Peter, how did you? Happy birthday. And he tells him happy birthday. That's really nice and really kind of cool, because Peter's trying to help him. He understands that he's done some nutty, crazy things. And it's really kind of cool that in the end, the living brain tells him happy birthday. That's just a nice thing. Then we see Felicia pretty much checking in on him. And he's trying to figure out what to do. He's like, there's a computer brain in there that knows my secret identity. I've got to get it somewhere safe. And she's pretty much got some people that can handle it and promises that people won't experiment on it. He did like some birthday, didn't even get to open presents. And then we see that he gets a kiss from Felicia as a happy birthday. And we see that the Ock arms are looking in with its own kind of like little heart thing, which is like, okay, I hope that they do more with that, with with the Ock arms. That was just an interesting twist, and I'm like, that'll be interesting to see how that kind of pans out and what will happen in the future with that. So we get to a little story as it's like, hey, yeah, they're doing a thing at the public library to be waiving late fees and everything. So he pretty much goes to the library to like hand in all these books that have been kind of fucked up over the years. And like, all right, let's do this. And they go through all these different kind of things that kind of connect to like what Peter's been doing, how they're in various states of like disrepair and stuff like that. And she's like, all right, that comes to $452.86. And he's like, what about the clemency? That's for the late fines. A lot of these books are damaged, not to mention weirdly sticky. And she's like, there is something else you could do. And he pretty much does story time with the kids dressed as their Spider-Man. And they're like, those could be the real Spider-Man's glutes. And of course, gave him a new kind of library card. So it's like, hey, that's kind of cool. And I appreciate it because libraries are cool. And I kind of like a story with libraries in it. And then we get one where, this is a weird one, but this was a funny one, where we've got Spidey helping out Jimmy Kimmel because Mysterio is attacking in LA because he put out an album and they were fucking him over on it. They said that, like, it called it excruciating and unlistenable from the corporate polls, and Spider-Man's like, oh, dude, no, I need to fucking hear this. What is it called? Dreamlusions. Wow, I can't believe I guessed it. So Jimmy actually kind of helps him out and finds out where Mysterio's doing his stuff, and then he actually kind of interviews him, and it's a cool kind of little thing. Let's see here. Then we get the last one where he pretty much does a date with Ms. Brandt, but he gets sidetracked by the Goblin, and because like his friends and well, not friends, but people in high school were making fun of him, and instead of like 7, it's like past 9, and she's pissed. It's like, yeah, and Aunt May's like, oh, don't let that boy get to you. And that was just a kind of like, yep, Parker luck right there. And then we have a cool kind of interview with all these kind of we got Ed McGuinness, John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, Nick Dragata, Joe Caramagna, Marcio Menez, Patrick Gleason, and Zeb Wells. And then we also get one with Kevin Feige. That was actually pretty cool as well. So overall, I think this was an actually pretty entertaining issue where we get the bulk of it of a contained story detailing Spider-Man's birthday, which goes pretty much as well as you'd expect. However, I think it is more balanced in that we don't get a complete and utter fucked up, unlucky Peter, but more of a kind of balance where, like, yeah, it kind of goes to shit, but his friends are all safe. He kind of makes a new ally to a degree because he understands who Spider-Man is through his kind of fucked up experimenting of trying to figure out who Spider-Man is, but researching his villains, researching the ones he loves, and to put him in a situation to understand the entirety of Spider-Man, which I think is a very interesting kind of story process to actually kind of go through, because you do have various elements. You have the people that he loves who influences him and either helps him or hinders him. You have his villains, which also do the same, but in different kind of challenging events. And then you've got the person himself who has to make his choices and everything. And we see just classic Spider-Man stuff going, making his quips, trying to help, and standing up for what he believes in to help someone. And that's why I really liked it. It just had a good story with a good handle on the character of Spider-Man and great art to boot. I loved the art with it, and then I loved the little stories at the end. Loved having a thing about libraries and all that. And I think for $9.99, for $10 for the 900th issue, this was a really good celebration of Spider-Man for issue 900. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this to any kind of Spidey fan. And if you are like, I don't know if I'm into this kind of run of Spidey, and you're like, wow, like $10 would be a big kind of deal for you, I totally get that. But if you're like, I don't want to jump into, like, you don't know if you want to jump into this run with this creative team or this writer, pretty much, this would be a very good one to get that kind of handle on it, if that makes sense. And normally I wouldn't be like, hey, get the most expensive one. But this one, you don't have to know anything going on, and if you have a hard time finding the latest kind of relaunch of issue 1 through 5, I think your best bet would be to kind of try and go for this one, even though this would be kind of harder to find as well, since it's 900th and people would be collecting it for those kind of purposes. But if you kind of want to have an understanding of the current kind of writing for it, this is a very good example. Though, granted, if that's too expensive for you, I completely understand. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.